Hey, what's up everybody? This is D back again with another movie review, and this time we're going to be taking a look at the 1993 animated feature film Batman Mask of the Phantasm. Now, this is a movie that it's been literally almost 3 decades since I saw this movie last, before last night. I saw this movie pretty much right when it came out, and I was, young kid, very young kid, but a very big fan of Batman. I remember kind of being a little bit like feeling like, that was it after I saw the movie. That's my vague recollection of how I felt about, or how I remember feeling about this movie back then as a kid. Like I thought it was good to a degree, but I thought there was more that I was expecting. And since I was young, I'm guessing I was probably expecting more action, and I do think, and I'm going to expound upon this later on in the review, I do think maybe there was a little bit more expectation of Batman being in a more dominant position than maybe it ended up coming across. And maybe as a kid, I wasn't quite sure how to really verbalize that, or maybe accurately articulate it. But now that I just rewatched the film last night, I do think I can kind of more grasp of what my issues as a child were, probably with the film, and some of that still kind of lingers a little bit today, though I do grasp the high marks, the reason why this film is so loved by many Batman fans and rated so highly. So anyways, I watched this movie last night. And also, for a little backstory, I am a very big fan of the original, that early 90s Batman the Animated Series TV show, which I feel like Batman Mask of the Phantasm is pretty much just a spin-off, an extension of that same style and just general Batman world, even though the story isn't connected to Batman the Animated Series really at all that I know of chronologically, but obviously very closely connected. So I was a big fan of that series. So from an aesthetic perspective, this movie already has high marks from me just from the general look. But I'm gonna do this very mechanically. I'm gonna list my positives, run down my positives. I have a couple observations, and I'll also run down a couple of my negatives about the film before I end this thing. So positives, first off, great musical score. This Shirley Walker was the one behind the musical score. I really like the musical score. It's also one of the facets of the movie that I don't remember paying any special attention to as a kid. Scores in general, other than the just kind of iconic ones, scores in general, as a young kid, I wasn't consciously paying attention to that I can remember. So that's not surprising. So hearing this, kind of rehearing this last night, was kind of almost like hearing something new, basically. And it is a very impressive musical score. Not sure where I would rank it in terms of, I've always been a big fan of the Danny Elfman musical score for the Tim Burton films. I've always been a fan of that. I know people have heard it to death over the decades and whatnot, but it is still to me a very quality musical score. So I'm not quite sure where I would rate this Batman Mask of the Phantasm score, but it is very strong, very dramatic, very effective. I really did like it. So that's a positive. Some more positives. This film just overall is a great exploration of who Batman / Bruce Wayne is. Out of all and I know this is an attribute that most people that talk about this movie kind of touch upon, but I have to, because it's a true thing. Most of the live action films we have never really been able to kind of accurately dive into Bruce as a person and Batman as a person. And this does that very impressively, actually. Like it touches on some things emotionally and thematically that it's kind of almost like baffling why live action Batman films haven't been able to go there. You would think a live action production You would think a live action production would have even more kind of freedom to go to some of these emotional character exploration depths, and they don't. So it's an interesting thing, but an impressive point about this film, like the way they explore Batman and Bruce as a person. I already talked about the style of this film, the way it's very similar, basically kind of a few little tweaks, but basically the same animation style as the Batman the Animated Series, the early 90s TV show. So points for that. The noir mood and atmosphere is very heavy, and particularly during, of course, the night portions of this movie, but it's very heavy with this film, and the animation style lends itself to a kind of noir, no good deed done after dark type style film and just kind of atmosphere, and that is very heavy with this movie, and it's perfect for Gotham City, perfect for Batman and his kind of how things work in his world. Also, for the Phantasm, the early appearances of the Phantasm were good, and I'm obviously kind of going someplace with this. These appearances, they presented the potential for Batman to have a foe who was on a certain level on equal footing with Batman, but more on the kind of evil, possibly evil side of things. At least the early presentation of him presented that possibility. And I remember too a little vague kind of hint of feeling something like that as a child as well when I saw this movie, that like, okay, this should be kind of more just like almost balls to the wall, like action type deal, just like this is Batman facing his equal in a way, somebody who kind of operates in the same way as him with the dark theatricality and using fear on his opponents. But this particular character, the Phantasm, he might be more on the extreme side of things. He might be more on the evil side of things as opposed to the good side of things in terms of methods and whatnot. And he might present it, but he still might present a challenge to Batman. That's kind of the interaction that I was expecting based upon initial introductions, and the initial introductions and moments with the Phantasm were very good, very strong. I loved the mood, the darkness. It just complemented Gotham City and Batman very well. So I remember as a child looking forward to further kind of some confrontations with Batman and the Phantasm. And it didn't pan out the way kind of I would have initially liked. But just talking about positives, the initial appearances of the Phantasm, I thought were really well done. Also, it was an amazing and kind of rather insightful moment involving Bruce Wayne at his parents' gravesite. It's probably the strongest moment, just from a overall impact. Probably the strongest moment of the whole film is this moment with Bruce at his parents' gravesite, where it really gives just a lot of insight into the character, his motivations, his torments, what's haunting him, and what's really driving him, but also kind of haunting him at the same time, and the guilt and just different things that, again, it's surprising that a live action Batman production, just checking my focus, it's surprising that a live action Batman production hasn't been able to reach these depths with this character. It's just it's a peculiar thing, but again, very big positive for this movie. Now, also, the romance with Andrea. Okay, it was Andrea, I guess. It was well crafted. I will say that it was new, and it was written specifically and only for this film. That's my understanding. But even with that being the case, it still fits seamlessly into the Batman mythos without feeling like it disturbed anything before these events occurred or after these events occurred. So I thought that was impressive how well done that was. They didn't really rock the boat in terms of Batman's timeline or his mythos, or are they screwed with the traditionally accepted Batman ethics and all of those type of things that oftentimes people gripe over. They inserted something that was completely new, or rather random, you could say, and wasn't associated with any other known, that I know of, Batman storylines. They just inserted this kind of one-time thing, and it fits seamlessly into the Batman mythos. So I thought that was actually a very impressive thing, how they did that. Great voice acting all around. I'm going to read off all the names to make sure people get their credit, but obviously some of the usual animated Batman suspects like Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill, but also Dana Delany, Hart Bachner, and Stacy Keach. I want to make sure to mention them because they gave really strong voice acting performances here. The runtime is short. It's around, I believe, 75 minutes. This is a good and a bad thing. On the good side of things, it's a quick, easy watch, and you're getting a lot of quality and a lot of value in that short amount of time. Now, on the negative side of that, because there's so much quality there, if you're a Batman fan, you kind of want more. You want a longer movie, a longer extended kind of moments in the film. There's also, because of where the movie goes story wise, there's also things that I think get a little bit more neglected than I personally would have liked. So there's, a longer film would have gave more opportunity to add more of what I think might have been missing from this movie. So, but again, very well done movie. So 75 minutes, very quick watch, easy watch, just very efficient with what it gives you and the quality of what it gives you. So gotta give it credit there on the good side of things, though there is a negative aspect, you could argue, to the runtime. All right, so on the negative side of things for this film, the romance was well done, but it's also part of the reason why I kind of wanted a longer movie. I wanted more Batman kind of prowling the city, encountering criminals, more extended interactions with the Phantasm, pre-unmasking of the Phantasm, because you know how I am with mask in a lot of movies. Once the mask comes off, a lot of energy and tension is taken out of the film, and that actually is kind of the case here as well with this movie, even though I do like the movie. But some more interactions with the Phantasm, more kind of neo-noir crime taking place, because it's clearly a neo-noir crime setting, more action and suspense and even horror, because the early appearances of the Phantasm do call to mind a little bit of horror elements and themes and whatnot, and just kind of effects, I guess. So the movie was a strong exploration of Bruce the person, but it was a bit of a tease in terms of kind of where things ended up going with the Phantasm and kind of some of the things involving Batman in action as well. So now also Andrea as the Phantasm, she's fantastic from an emotional story arc perspective, but logistically, physically, it was a tough sell for me to buy into. Well, without any further exploration of how she did some of the things she did, it was kind of just, from a logical perspective, it was a tough sell for me to buy into some of the things that she was supposed to have done as the Phantasm. But to be fair, animated Batman has always had some of his own kind of, just go with it abilities and attributes and plot armor in certain scenarios and things like that. So, to be fair, Batman has always kind of had that going on with him, particularly in the animated features. So I guess I'm saying, if you work with the just kind of, and in general, most superhero productions, you kind of have to eventually work with the just go with it method of watching things. If you go with the just go with it method, then Andrea as the Phantasm, she's really a strong kind of character. It's a strong role. It's a strong, I shouldn't say role, this is animation, I guess, so, but it's a strong character, and Andrea as the role of Phantasm, because it shows how kind of tragic the situation is, because she's able to so easily relate to Bruce in a way, in terms of kind of things they've experienced and the routes that they chose to take after those experiences, and that makes their romance that much more tragic because of how things transpire. And so what I will say is, this movie, just I guess as an observation, this movie, if you view it as a romance, if you go into the movie viewing it or expecting a kind of tragic romance, it becomes even stronger, because that is really, honestly, kind of the main focus of the film to some degree, is the it involves the Phantasm. The Phantasm turns out to be who it turns out to be. This whole movie is essentially a tragic romance story, which for me, particularly when I was a kid, I think was kind of like wasn't really what I was looking for at the time when I saw the movie. And so I think some of that might have threw me off as a kid. Even now as an adult, I think it's a really well done story, just really well done production, but it leaves me a little bit unsatisfied in terms of, like, they never really they didn't do a sequel really that I'm aware of. There's been tons of animated Batman movies. I know I've seen quite a few of them, but there never really was an actual like sequel to Mask of the Phantasm, something that used the same animation style and was meant to be, from a chronological perspective, an extension of the Mask of the Phantasm story. They never did that. So just overall, I'm kind of left a little like there's unfinished business with the movie. I wanted to explore more of this particular world that this story occupied, and not just be focused totally on the romantic, what is essentially the romantic situation with Andrea and Batman, or Andrea and Bruce Wayne or whatever. So it was just kind of like it was an interesting observation. So my overall, I guess, takeaway, I didn't realize I was going to be so kind of long-winded about this particular review. I actually did notes and all this type of stuff, and I didn't think I wrote that much, but it ended up turning into more than. But anyway, so my overall takeaway for Batman Mask of the Phantasm, it's really good. It is. I understand completely why people have it held in such high regard. I'm not sure if it's, I know it's not my favorite Batman movie. I've definitely heard tons of people say it actually is the best Batman movie. Just, if you look at kind of how Batman works and how he traditionally is supposed to be, I guess, presented, and, in relation to the comic books and the animated series and whatnot, a lot of people feel this actually is the best Batman movie. I'm not even quite sure if I'm there yet, but I do completely see the validity and why people feel that way, or why a lot of people feel that way. It's just, and it's all very just high quality, and particularly if you're a big fan of the animated series, there's no way to kind of not be able to appreciate this movie. So definitely recommend it to all Batman fans out there. It is, I would say, in terms of Batman fans, this is required viewing. You got to check this out. Like I said, it had been almost 30 years since I had seen this film, because I remember seeing it very soon after it was initially released, and I can't remember too many occasions, if any occasions, where I rewatched it actually. So yeah, it's kind of wild to revisit a film after that long of a time, between viewings. But there it is. So that is the review, Batman Mask of the Phantasm. Quality Batman film, definitely worth a watch. Check it out if you haven't already. And as always, until the next time, I will catch you on the next go round.